How's it going, everyone? This is Jamie from jamiewargames.wordpress.com, and this is going to be the first in a few videos talking about the York Opens competitions. It's the first real major competition I've been going in for wargaming. This blog started off as talking about my VAT attack experience when I took my Salamanders 3rd Company to a small 1,000-point competition in York here. I really enjoyed it, had a great time. I placed, I think, 11th out of 16th or something, which, considering I was taking a fluffy list, I was quite pleased with. And then this year I've entered a more serious competition, as it were, the York Opens, and what I'm going to do with these videos is I'm going to just talk about my experiences, the army I took, my games themselves, and what worked and what didn't work, how I've been adapting and changing things. Those who've been watching or following my blog will have seen before that I was setting up my army for the Rage competitions, and I kind of sort of disappeared. I apologise for that. The long and short of what happened is that I spent an all night trying to get my army ready, and in the end I couldn't paint everything, so I abandoned the Tau side of it, the firebase support cadre, and instead I took Eldar as a pure force with a few units in that I liked. And so what I'm going to do now is this video is going to be about those games. I'll show the army and explain what happened, and then what I'll do is I'll post up another video not long after this, which is going to be talking about today's events, which was the second heats that I went along to, again bringing pure Eldar, and what hopefully you'll be seeing over the course of this competition is adapting my list, changing it up, and coming up with new ways to try and build on an already strong list, hopefully. We'll see. So, without doubt, I'll get into the first section of this, which is the York Rage, or Royal Armoury Gaming Exhibition armies. Okay then, so this is the list that I brought to the Rage competitions in Leeds, 1,500 points of pure Eldar. So most of this was going to the original plan. It's just that I had to swap out a few elements at the end for the firebase support cadre because I had the stuff already painted. I didn't have the firebase cadre, painted. But the core of the list is basically the same. So to lead, we've got Farseer. Okay, so this is the list that I took to the Rage competitions in Leeds, 1,500 points of pure Eldar. So most of it was according to plan. The Farseer, the Dire Avengers and the Fire Dragons, the Guardians, but I had to replace the Tau elements with some Warp Spiders, the Shining Spears and the Fire Prism because I already had that stuff painted, and I just picked units that I kind of liked placing as I wasn't really maxing out the power play here. So leading the army is of course the Psyker Biker, so Farseer on Jet Bike, Singing Spear, and that's it. I was really hoping to roll up Fortune because his attached squad would be the Shining Spears, and they've got Skilled Rider, so giving them rollable 3-up armor saves and 4+ Jink. I was kind of hoping that would let me ride down and save the day a couple of times. In terms of troops, we've got the 2 squads of Dire Avengers, 9 Dire Avengers, no Exarchs or anything, in 2 Wave Serpents. They both have Scatter Lasers and Holofields. Then we have the Guardian squad, led by the Warlock with a Singing Spear, and they have a Bright Lance platform. We have a squad of 5 Fire Dragons in another Wave Serpent with Scatter Lasers and Holofields. Then we have the 5 Shining Spears, they have an Exarch with the Star Lance, and they have Hit and Run. And finally we have the squad of Warp Spiders. There's an Exarch there with Fast Shot and 2 twin-linked Death Spinner, that's what they call it now. And of course a Fire Prism at the back with the Holofields. And that is 1,500 points of Eldar. Okay, so the first game I played was against the Space Wolves. Drop pod heavy army. It was fairly simple. There were 7 drop pods, 6 of them with a full squad of Grey Hunters, and they all had, I think 3 of them had 2 Melters in, and 3 of them had 2 Plasma Guns in. And then there was also a Rune Priest with a 10-man squad of Wolfguard with the Combi Plasmas, I think.
The Codex Astartes names this maneuver Steel Rain. We will descend upon the foe. We will overwhelm them. We will leave none alive.
The mission was Vanguard Strike, and the game type was the Emperor's Will, so one objective each. I won the first turn, which was going to give me a big boost. What I did was I only deployed my tanks, and I set my Warp Spiders and my Shining Spears in reserves, and my Guardians as well, to walk on my edge. And then I castled up. It's kind of difficult to see without much of an image, but I had the Fire Prism in the back corner, and then I had the 3 Wave Serpents spread out, using their shields to protect. I figured that with the Alpha Strike, you know, even if the Melter Guns come down, because they'll come down first, I should be okay. And with my Serpent Shields, it was even better because I got the first turn. I could use my... I could move to get the 5+ Jink, I could then Turbo Boost to get the 4+ Jink, and with the Holofields that would go to a 3+ Jink save. With the Serpent Shields as well, gave my guys a very good chance of surviving. The mistake I made was that I actually broke my castle, and I tried to spread out to force him to move and split his forces rather than pin me in the corner. Not necessarily a bad idea, but it meant that in 2 of the 3 cases, my Wave Serpent, he could just get the Melter Guns into the back arcs of the Wave Serpents, and he took out the Fire Dragon's Wave Serpent and immobilized the one of the Dire Avengers ones. It was a good game, fairly closely held. In the end, I just couldn't cut through that many power armoured bodies, and I lost 20 victory points to 0, which is basically a 6-point difference in the victory. He held both objectives at the end. He had First Blood and the Warlord Kill and Linebreaker. Man of the match for that unit was probably the squad of Dire Avengers, whose transport got immobilised because they promptly hopped out and then just made a hell of a leather sprint towards the enemy objective, and they nearly made it. They just got assaulted by some Grey Hunters, which, well, no one's what you'd expect. The day, as it were, I would probably give it to myself for breaking what was a very sound formation against drop pod lists, but if I had to go beyond that, the Fire Dragons didn't really pull their weight. They missed a few melter shots where they could have maybe killed a few more Marines, but I didn't really have much chance. So, a rough start. Okay, the second game I played, I lined up actually against a Tau player. This one I knew was going to be an uphill struggle. He had 2 Sky Rays, 2 Riptides with the Ion Accelerators, and a 3rd Riptide coming along with the Firebase support cadre with 2 squads of missile side broadsides. There was also 2 squads of 15 or 20 Kroot, and the Fireblade leader with a full unit of Fire Warriors.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Ouch. So I don't really have much to deal with that many Riptides. It was a hammer and anvil deployment with the long edges, and so what I really wanted to do was to maximise my range. I did not want to get into those tank hunting broadsides levels, and so I sat right at the very back and made the broadsides actually walk towards me for the first couple of turns. What of course happened was that he rushed forward with his Riptides. I managed to bring down 2 of them in the end, and one was only on 2 or 3 wounds left. The real star of the day were the Warp Spiders, who deep strikes into the back. I deep struck and outflanked with my units again, but I forgot that he had Interceptor on pretty much everything, and my Farseer's unit promptly got wiped out.
It's a trap!
In the end, I didn't get tabled, surprisingly, and my Warp Spiders actually earned me 3 kill points because they deep struck in. They somehow survived the 2 intercepting Ion Accelerator shots that would have blown the smithereens. Then moved up, they rapid fired down some Fire Warriors, then survived another turn in terrain, and then they charged the Fire Warriors, the Exile managed to defeat the Fireblade, and they managed to drive down and run off the Fire Warriors, and then survive till the end of the game. So the Warp Spiders definitely earned their points there. Unfortunately, the Fire Dragons messed up a bit. The 3 Riptides had closed in on me, and I knew, right, this is the turn, I've got to take them all down or nothing. So how about my Fire Dragons? They all load up their Melter Guns, and I think 1 hit, or something like that. Or 2 hit and 1 failed to wound. And he passed his invulnerable save. So it was sort of a case where you had to sort of shrug and say, well, you had one job, guys. I think it was a forlorn victory. I don't think there was much I could really do against this kind of list. I didn't have the tools available to me to take out that many Riptides, and nor did I have the width to be able to outrun him. It was basically how many turns can I sit at the back until he closes in and punches me up. Man of the match, definitely to the Warp Spiders though. They won 3 kill points in the end because it was a kill point game. Another thing as well, because his troops were relatively weak, but whereas I had a few more troops than him, well, more survivable troops. That would have been quite useful. And down to the day, Fire Dragons. They once again they went up and they missed. They had one job to do. I mean, the Shining Spears, they got blown to pieces, but I tend to give the Dick of the Day awards to my models, my units, who should have done well and didn't, rather than ones who just got caught by bad luck. So that was, I think I held it on kill points to a 4 lead victory, so I think I got 4 points or something from that. It wasn't a wipeout, so I think this final score was something like 11-7, or along those lines anyway. But yeah, so that was a painful match. The guy actually came out second in the end with that list in the overall tournament. So what can you do? So, getting steadily pushed all the way back down the league tables, well, we got to, I think it was table number 8 out of 10, and I ran into a guard player. I thought, okay, this should be a reasonable matchup. There was a pair of Lehman Russes, there was a command squad, a veteran squad in Vendetta, and several guys behind an Aegis defense line. What I didn't count on was the Void Shield generator that was covering his entire army. Armor 14 and Armor 30 on the Russes is hard to crack at the best of times, particularly seeing as my only real anti-tank tools at that range is the Fire Dragons. But with the Void Shield generator in the way, and it had the extra Void Shield, so I think it had 4 Void Shields, and on a 5+ it regenerates 1 each turn. So every turn my Serpents were having to break down this Void Shield and try and take it out. Guardians sat on objective happily for the entire game. They only came off once to mow down some veterans, but otherwise I just couldn't penetrate the lines. There was too much defense. I killed the company command squad with the Warp Spiders when they deep struck in, but the Shining Spears, once again outflanking, were demolished as soon as they walked on the board. I couldn't break the castle to get in to the objectives. The game type was the Scouring, so I thought I'd have an advantage with my 2 fast attack choices to his 1 of the Vendetta, but in the end I was almost wiped out once again, and I think the final score was something like, I don't remember, it was low anyway. It was closer than the other games, but not by much. So what did I learn from this competition? Well, the first thing I learned is that it's not just the composition of your army, it's actually the way you play it. Particularly at 1500 points, where you don't have as much redundancy, it is possible, if you leave one key unit out of place or make a mistake of targeting, then it will really cost you. The first game against the Space Wolves, I had a very powerful defense. I could have easily withstood the Alpha Strike, and then I would have had a much better chance of repelling him, but instead I got lax, I moved out too far with my Wave Serpents, and I did not cover my back arcs. This is going to become a recurring theme you'll find with this competition. Cover your back arcs with the Wave Serpents, because you cannot afford to let deep striking melter guns into your rear arc. I learned also that it isn't always the best idea to reserve your units. I'm a fan of Mekdar. I've got 7 grav tanks at the moment, and I'm looking to add a super heavy to that, as I've said before, but more confidence with units on the table. It isn't 5th edition anymore, where if you have a single foot slogger, they're going to get blasted off the board. So it's okay to take a mixture of things, either that or just take more tanks. I tried to play it like a mechanized list, but there was too many foot elements, and there was a lot of points sunk into the Shining Spears and the Farsi who. The Shining Spears aren't bad, but they're not particularly good. And I played them very badly. They should not have been outflanking. They should have been on the table, protected somewhere, and they might have taken a casualty or 2. but they should have been there, getting the psychic powers up for the rerolls, the prescience, and the fortune, and then they should have been getting engaged. The warp spiders were fine. I had no worries about them, and they were a very effective unit. So overall, I liked parts of the list, but indeed the bits I had to sort of ad hoc in weren't so effective, except the warp spiders. So I modified the list, and I took it to the second competition, which was held only today. So stay tuned for that video. I'll talk more about what happened in today's games.